Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.
Okay, this fly is kind of a fun fly we've been playing with lately. Tested it out on its test run. It outfished a lot of stuff. Anyway, our good buddy Justin Hambone helped us name it. I kind of forced the name on it, but it's called the Hambone. Super easy fly. So this fly can be tied with either a Gamakatsu SC15 saltwater hook, and I use that for saltwater, freshwater. The reason I like this hook is because you can put it back in your box when it's wet, it doesn't rust. I know that's the lazy way to do it, but sometimes I do it that way. In a 2/0, and the funny thing is this is about the same size as a Gamakatsu B10S in size 1. So explain that to me. Anyway, we've got the 2/0 SC15, and I've got a cone on the hook. This is just a, the biggest cone or smallest cone, however size cone you want. This just kind of helps the fly get down a little bit, kind of suspend in the water. So I'm going to dress the thread with 140 denier Danville thread in yellow. So the tail is going to be two-tone craft fur. Then I'm going to cut a healthy clump of craft fur out. And I've been making dubbing brushes with this, but if you just take one of these slicker brushes or carding brushes, you can get all the fur out. Or you can use the Danville comb. But basically, I want it to kind of taper just like that. So I'm just going to worry about taking the short fibers out of the butts. So tie it on just like that. I'll repeat it with brown. So on this one you can do it in a whole bunch of different colors, but I like putting the light color on the bottom. And the funny thing is you're not really going to see this in the water very much once we put the collar on. So you saw I came in and cut it kind of at an angle to make the thread wrapping a little easier. And now, one thing that will help your craft fur from fouling is I'm going to kind of prop this up here, and I'm going to put some thread wraps around the base of that tail. Just like that. So that will help your craft fur from wrapping around the hook. That's a saltwater trick. I probably stole it from 239 flies, but just don't tell them. Then I'm going to take some brush on super glue and just kind of touch it in here very lightly. Now the next thing I'm going to do is tie in some Senyo aqua. I'm not going to tie it in right where that tail starts. I'm just going to kind of move up the hook a little bit. Right about here. I just want to leave about 1.5 inches length of hook shank to wrap the dubbing brush on, or the craft fur brush. So that's about enough. Alright, now what I'm going to do to seat my cone is I'm just going to come over the top of the cone and make some crisscross wraps. Okay, so I have created some crisscross wraps over the top of this tungsten cone, and it'll stay put now. Alright, so on another video you saw us make this dubbing brush, which is made out of yellow, brown, and craft fur and some gold ice wing fiber. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just tie this in right here behind the bead. Tie it in really tight, snug. And then always have some designated wire cutters for these diamond brushes. It's very sharp. Okay, so I'm going to take this Danville brush tool, and as I wrap this around the hook, I'm going to either brush it or use the comb to comb it back as I wrap it forward. Now, if you want a really fat head on your fly, you do more wraps. If you don't want quite as fat of a profile, you do fewer wraps. So I'm going to get between 3 and 4 wraps. Alright. So before I tie this off, I'm going to brush all this out of the way and try to find the core of this brush so that I don't trap a lot of fibers down. So I'm going to wiggle that around. And now I've got it tied down. If I could find that core, I could trim it off. There we go. Now, one of the tricks that you can do here is if you put too much over the eye and want some space, you can take a fugly packer and squish it back a little bit, which I created a little bit of room with. Okay, so we've got it whip finished, and now we're just going to brush this out. So you can see straight on, I mean, it's pretty thick head right there so far. Okay, so the way I like to shape this head is with brush on super glue. This is just some I got at the craft store. We've got some brush on Zap-A-Gap as well that works really well. So I'm just going to start brushing it on right at the head. So then I can start grabbing it and brushing it back. And this will take quite a bit of super glue. So once I have the head kind of rounded off how I want it, I'm going to pull the head back like this to kind of give it a round shape. And if I have to, I can take a bodkin in here and really kind of force that head down. But the idea here is you're creating a round head with some bulk so that when your fly gets wet, the head of the fly stays really wide and it tapers back to a point in the water. And this is why you use a wide gap hook with this as well, because the head's pretty bulky on the bottom of the fly too. Alright, so now we've got the head shaped basically how we want it. Now I'm going to put some of these 3D adhesive eyes on. This color is Super Pearl, and I really like it because it almost takes the color of whatever you stick it onto. And to put the eyes on, I really like a gel super glue, so I'll use that to put the eyes on. Alright, to stick these eyes on, I've got some super glue. I'm just going to make a little dab right where I want to stick the eye. And I know there's already a lot of super glue on the fly, but that will concentrate a whole bunch of it right where this eye is. We fished this pattern a few weekends ago and really tried to knock the eyes off and we couldn't. Now keep in mind also that there's super glue all throughout the head, so you kind of have to be real careful here. And just, it'll give you a little bit of time to kind of wiggle it into place, and then it's there basically forever. Alright, so that's the Hambone fly. It's a very bulky fly in the front, tapers down nicely, and you can do it in a bunch of different colors just based on what dubbing brush or craft fur brush you do. A lot more patterns and materials are available on our site, www.flyfishfood.com, and our store site, store.flyfishfood.com.